Stop drinking one of these days. I'm going to stop smoking one of these days, one of these days, one of these days. You never get anywhere until you make a definite, deliberate choice with a date on it. Today or whatever it might be. So, one of those biblical illustrations of a person who's slothful is that they are a procrastinator. Now, I look at the 22nd Psalm of Proverbs, and verse, look if you will, at 22, verse 13. Here's what he says. A person, for example, who's slothful, they just avoid work. Watch this. A person who is slothful will find an excuse for not doing what they ought to do. Looking for an excuse, they manufacture excuses. And so what is he saying? The sluggard says, there's a lion outside, he doesn't know whether there is or not. I'll be killed in the streets. I mean, it's just an excuse for not doing what a person ought to do. Now ask yourself the question. When you have responsibility, do you give excuses for not doing it? Do you say, well, you know what, this morning I had a headache. Well, you know what, I can't imagine people who accomplish too much who let a little headache bother them. Now, once in a while I realize that somebody may have one of those migraines that I never had, so I'm not going to judge someone else. But you know what? You can have a sore toe, you can have a headache, you can have a sore throat, you can have all kinds of things to keep you from fulfilling your responsibility. People who achieve and accomplish anything in life, they don't let themselves be sidestepped here by something that's insignificant. You can always come up with a reason. And you see, what we don't realize is the impact upon our children. When you promise your son or your daughter you're going to do something, and you say, well, you know, I had to work a little longer, and you give an excuse for not being trustworthy and reliable because you're just downright lazy, and you just don't want to go to this ball game with them, and you just don't want to take her shopping, and then what happens? They lose heart. And their attitude toward their parents oftentimes is not good. And the parent says, well, now, why don't you do what I tell you? And sometimes these kids probably think, well, why don't you do what you promised? Because it's the same thing. A person who's slothful, you can count on them. That's what they're going to do. They're going to avoid all the work they possibly can. And if you will look in the 6th chapter, I want you to see another characteristic that Proverbs says, 6th chapter and the 9th verse. Look back there for a moment. 6th chapter and the 9th verse, and notice what the scripture says here. A person who is slothful wastes time, and they waste their talents and skills by not doing what they should do. He says, for example, 9th verse, how long will you lie down, old sluggard, old slothful person? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, your poverty will come in like a vagabond. Now, a person who's slothful wastes time. Time is the most valuable thing you and I have. If you'll think about it, your time is your life. That's your life you're wasting away. Your talents and your skills and your abilities. When we are slothful and we don't put our time, talents, and abilities and skills to work, we're wasting time. We're wasting whose time? We're wasting God's time, His gift that He's given us. Why did He give us? For example, why did He give us the gifts that He's given us and the time that He's given us? Because He wants us to use it for Himself. We're followers of Jesus. We represent Him. And to waste time, and to waste talents, and to waste skills and abilities that God has given us, He says it's slothfulness and it's a sin.